All right. Well, thanks for joining us here today, Dion.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Thank you. So, for those of us that's not familiar with your career, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be the person that you are today?
I guess who I am today is probably very different to where I first started. And people see me today and, I'm on stage. I look like a confident speaker. I'm always hosting, the glammed up events around Sydney. But in truth, it didn't start off like that. I guess I always had ambitions to be front of stage, front of camera, because my father was a very competent MC. Probably the best, that I know and in our hometown. But, my background was as a fat, shy kid. Always the last, as I remember, to be picked for sports, etc. So I felt that some things needed to change and that the missing ingredient obviously was confidence. And I found a niche, being front of stage as an MC and, learnt a lot from what my father taught me and just experience over the years.
All right, well, let's unpack that a bit. So what sparked the transformation from a fat, shy kid to the confident person that you are today?
Well, Jeffrey, I always been very highly motivated and, being, a young, shy kid, a young, fat kid, I didn't have, I felt the confidence required to take me to the places that I wanted to go. So, I sought out to lose weight. I sought out to be a more confident person. And so I, involved myself in a lot of different sporting activities. I lost that weight. With regards to the confidence in front of people, I realized that that would involve me coming out of the shell that I had, being a more a social person, and I think everyone now knows me as that social guy. And I found that being that gregarious guy helped me progress with my relationships.
Tell us a little bit about how you started your career.
My career started out in IT, which was kind of interesting because my background is in finance and accounting, which was never really what I wanted to do, by the way.
Why did you do it?
Well, I guess I really wanted to study filmmaking, to be honest. It's something that my father didn't agree with. He said that I needed to be doing something a little bit more solid, and not knowing what else to do, I guess I was that sheep that joined my friends into that world of finance and accounting. I hated it. But thank goodness, life has a funny way of working out. I never worked in it, and I'm thankful for that.
And so you got into IT, and what happened?
Initially, it was I was told that I'd have an accounting role within the company. That never happened because, as it turned out, I was very good at sales, and the boss didn't want to move me out of that role. And I was good at it. I loved sales, but and in fact I got so good at it that I think that I felt for myself that there wasn't any more progression for me. So rather than take the boss's job, which was never going to happen, I decided to start my own company, and did very well in that, and eventually moved out of that industry when it started to turn, and turned that towards hospitality.
Okay. And tell us about your ventures in hospitality.
Yeah, so it's been an industry that had been very good for me for the last couple of decades. I really enjoyed the people that I met through that industry, starting, building and selling hospitality businesses. But as we know, that's become a very tough industry now with COVID-19. And I've had to turn my attention to other things now.
Right. So there was a story about how you became an MC in the first place. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, well, as I may have mentioned, my father was a very good MC, and he set a very high bar for me to follow. But there came a time where an organization that I was attached to required an MC. I was volunteered for that role, and I guess I've been in that role ever since. Over the years with different organizations, and I've developed a business in that area now, which has been very kind to me. It's allowed me to meet so many interesting different people and businesses, and live what people see as a very colorful life.
Absolutely. What most people know in US is this colorful character on social media with a massive following. So how did you become that character, and was that something you planned to do?
I guess in some way it was planned, but it's also, I think just an extension of my natural character, which is bubbly, which loves to have fun, and I love a laugh as much as anyone else. So I think that comes through with my work as an MC. It comes through my social media work. And a lot of people, I think, are attracted to that. They like to be around someone who's having fun, someone who's colorful, somebody who's interesting.
So this image that you've got online, it seems to be very carefully curated. Is that something that's by happenstance, or is that particularly by design?
Probably a little bit of both. I guess my journey into social media started because, well, a lot of it was around food, because that was the industry I was in. So I started to do stuff around food, which everyone seems to love anyway, and it's one of the biggest things on social media, right? I guess cute animals and food are the biggest things on social media, but also the very many different events that I went to. I started doing posts about that, and people seemed to be very interested in the kind of events that I was hosting or attending. So luckily I had a lot of content to report on.
Awesome. And so what have you done with the following that you have?
Well, I guess I'm very subtle about my treatment of my audience. I'm very respectful that I have a solid following. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is my following on LinkedIn, for example. And I think that's a wonderful platform. We actually created, my friends and I, a club called Linfluencers, which seeks to connect people outside of that LinkedIn framework. So we take the online, offline. We've held events such as golf days, boat cruises, etc. We also have a charity piece, which I think is very important to give back. And we nominate a particular charity for each event, raise money for that. But I think that with my followers, I guess what's important for me is that I give some kind of value. I always seek to entertain, so I think it's important to be interesting. Also to engage with your following and be interested in what they're about. And I think that going forward, I do have something special in mind actually, as to how I'm going to, which I don't want to give away just now, but it will be something that's I think very valuable for the following that I've built.
So Dion, I kind of see you as a bit of an ambassador to the Asian Australian community. Was that something that you set out to do?
I don't think it was something that I set out to do. It's something that's developed organically over time. I guess I'm a known quantity to the Chinese community, and probably equally to the non-Chinese community. And as such, I've sort of slipped into that role of being a kind of a bridge between the two. It's something that I'm very comfortable with.
So you're almost able to sort of demystify this sort of the Chinese Australian community and bring it to the wider audience, isn't it?
Well, hopefully. I think that I'm able to at least bring the traditions and the things that are interesting for the Chinese community in particular to a wider audience. And I think that's helpful.
Those sort of skills is what I regard as cultural competency. Being able to create relationship and understanding across different cultures And I see that as a very important skill to have in the modern Australian workplace. How do you develop something like that?
It was very helpful that I grew up in Australia from a young age. I came over to Sydney when I was 12 years old. I went to boarding school, so I mixed around with a lot of what we call Australian people, I guess. A lot of them were country boys, so I got to understand very well the nuances of Australian culture, mannerisms, the kind of things, the values that are important to them, and I took them on for myself. So I think these things take time to develop, but I have great optimism for the future because there's a new generation of the Chinese being born and growing up in Australia now, and I think that that's going to help a lot between the relationships.
So tell me about how you can add value to the people that follow you online.
That's a great question, Jeff. I think that it's the same for everyone. Well, particularly in my field, but I think everyone can take this on, and that is the two things that I would recommend for people wanting to progress. Firstly, be more visible. Now, whether that's appearing more in social media, which I think is very important, whether it's putting your hand up to be the MC or the moderator at events at work, very important. Also, learn to become valuable, whatever that means. Be the one that puts his or her hand out to help your colleague or your friend with something. Be the one that gives them that piece of information that's going to help transform what they're about or what they want to do. So the two V's, I think, be visible, be valuable, is very important and will go a long way to helping anyone's journey.
So I agree with that, but being visible involves a whole lot of what I regard as self-promotion, right? How do you go about doing that? And I know a lot of people do have a problem, especially from a particular, from an Asian background, for example. They have they struggle to do self-promotion because that's something that they've been taught from a very young age. That's not something that you should be doing. So how do you overcome that mental hurdle of needing to be, modest and humble versus the need to be visible?
Wow. Okay, another great question. Well, Jeff, I think that there's a saying I like, which is, everything you want is outside your comfort zone. So we need to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if that means that, you need to go and pursue personal development, etc., and I highly recommend that. I've done a lot of that in my time, and that's probably, well, it definitely has contributed to my career, person that I am. I think that we need to understand that not being visible, not being valuable, doesn't serve us, right? So we need to do those things. It's like, if you want to get better, you need to take your medicine. So if you want to progress, then these are the key things that you need to master, or at least start, in order to progress in your journey.
Absolutely. So how did you come to that realization in the first place?
I knew that it wasn't going to be an easy task for me to become the person that I needed to be. I did, as I said, I've done a lot of personal development stuff. I've had some good mentors in my life. And so another takeaway, yes, find yourself somebody that's prepared to take you under their wing. Learn from them. For me, that was my father, who took a strong interest in what I did. But I guess, if you can't, and I didn't find it in academia, at university, etc. I hated all of that. But I knew that I loved being around people. So I think one of the key things also is, I think to get good at anything, you really need to do the things that you love to do. And my advice would be, well, it's a real blessing if you can do the things that you love and make money from it. that's happened for me, so I'm very grateful for that. And I think, if you find what you love and you work at it every day, and you get better and better at it, and until you get best at it, and then you become the expert at it, and now you can charge for that particular service, right? I think that's joy, and that's fulfillment. So my wish for everyone is, find what you love, do it, because you've heard that saying that if you do what you love, you never have to work again in your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, what advice do you have for young professionals coming up the ranks today?
Well, I've always said, especially for the Chinese community, that traditionally we're very strong academically. I think more than ever, it's important to develop those soft skills. I think that's what has propelled my career. I think it's important to go back to the old school way of getting to know your people, your customers, and engage with them in a deep and meaningful way. I think when you do that with authenticity, you can't help but succeed.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate the advice, and we hope to talk to you again.
Thank you for your time, Jeff.
Cheers.
Great to see you today.
Yes, yeah.